After 9 years of living off the very house I bought, my daughter and son-in-law suddenly won $85 million.
But instead of being grateful for the shelter I gave them, by noon that very day, my son-in-law's wife had cruelly thrown all my belongings out the window, china shattering across the street while she screamed, "We don't need to do charity for you anymore. Go die old in a nursing home." I stood in the yard, clothes dusty and rumpled, my heartbeat steady, and quietly said, "Did you read the name on the back of the ticket?" Her victorious smile froze for a split second, and soon that single question would make her glittering world collapse for good. If you're still listening, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave is another mark in this journey. And if this story has touched you, don't forget to hit like so it can reach even further. I'm Margaret Ellison, 68, a widow for nearly 12 years. Since Henry passed, the two-story house in the suburbs of Savannah, Georgia, became my only refuge, and then my daughter Clara's as well, along with her beautiful but overly sharp wife, Nora. 9 years ago, when Clara lost her job and Nora was pregnant, they knocked on my door in a fall storm, soaked and shivering. I opened the door, didn't ask much, and just said, "Come in. This house always has room for you." From then on, we lived together 3 generations, seemingly peaceful until that fateful morning. That morning, I got up early as usual, to make coffee and pancakes for the little ones, Lila, 10, and Eli, 7, but instead of the small footsteps chattering down the stairs, I heard a scream rip through the house from downstairs. "Clara, get up. Get up now." Nora's shrill voice rang out, bursting with excitement. I set the coffee pot down, heart pounding. I was used to my son-in-law's wife's temper, but today there was something different. Excitement, panic, almost mania. The wooden stairs shook as Clara ran down. I stayed at the top landing, holding my breath. A minute of silence. Then suddenly, shouts exploded. "No way. Oh my God. No way. We won, Clara. $85 million. $85 million. I looked down and saw Nora clutching the lottery ticket, trembling with excitement. Clara hugged her, laughing and repeating, "I can't believe it. I can't believe it." They both jumped up and down, tears streaming over young, hungry faces. And I, the one who bought that very ticket yesterday, with the numbers I've used for 25 years, each one a family birthday, stood frozen. My heart sank, not because of the money, but because they never asked, "Mom, is this your ticket?" I stepped halfway down the stairs about to speak, when Nora turned, eyes blazing like someone who just found buried treasure. "We're rich, Clara. Finally. We don't have to live in this old house anymore." She said it and kissed the ticket like a trophy. I stopped. The words, "this old house," stabbed right through me. The home Henry and I built with every saved dollar, every extra shift, every can of paint we rolled on with our own hands.
I wanted to say I was the one who bought that ticket at the corner convenience store, but the words stuck in my throat. I looked at Clara, my only daughter, hoping she'd realize something, but she just stood there, letting Nora call the shots like always. I went back to my small room in the attic, heavy-hearted. I brewed tea, but my hands shook so hard I spilled water on the table. For the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. About an hour later, I heard cars pulling up. Nosy neighbors arriving after hearing about the lottery family. Laughter, doors slamming, glasses clinking. I looked out the window and saw Nora showing off, waving the ticket, and Clara beside her, smiling awkwardly. By noon, there was a hard knock on my door. Nora stood there, arms crossed, lips curled. "Start packing. We're moving and we don't need any dead weight coming along." I didn't grasp it at first. "Dead weight," I repeated. "Yeah, we're buying a mansion. It wouldn't make sense for you to come. At your age, it's better to find a decent nursing home. They'll take care of you there." I looked her in the eye. "This is my house, Nora. Used to be, Margaret," she said, emphasizing each word. "Now we have a new life, and you're not part of it." Then she yanked open the closet and started throwing my things: dresses, the wedding photo, a pottery vase I made when I was young. Everything went crashing into the yard below. I stood there silent while neighbors gathered and whispered. Clara stood on the threshold, hands in pockets, face pale. But she didn't step in to stop her wife. "Nora, stop," she muttered. But she didn't listen. "We don't need to do charity for you anymore," she shouted as if she wanted the whole neighborhood to hear. The words felt like a knife in my chest. I quietly bent down, picked up the shattered frame, and wiped the dust off with my sleeve. The elderly neighbor across the street hurried over to help me gather things, but I stopped her. "Thank you, but I can do it." I collected what was still intact, a few changes of clothes, a wedding photo, and a small box holding Henry's ring. When a beat-up yellow cab pulled up, I stood, took a long breath. I turned to Clara, my daughter, whom I'd once believed would protect her mother for life. "You're not going to say anything?" I asked, calm and firm. She looked down. "Nora just went a little too far, Mom." "No, Clara," I said. "This is the choice you two made." I walked toward the gate, then stopped. Nora stood there, arms crossed, still wearing that triumphant smile. I looked straight at her. "Did you read the name on the back of the ticket?" For a split second, that smile stalled. A flicker of doubt crossed her eyes. Then she quickly feigned disdain. "I have no idea what you're talking about." I didn't answer. I opened the cab door, put my suitcase in the trunk, and told the driver softly, "Anywhere with the cheapest rooms nearby." As the car pulled away, I checked the rearview mirror. Clara stood frozen on the steps.
The two little ones pressed to the upstairs window, eyes red. Nora turned away, pretending to be on the phone, but I could see her shoulders tighten. The room I rented sat above a Chinese restaurant. It barely fit a twin bed, a wobbly wooden table, and a window stuck in its frame. The smell of frying oil rose from downstairs, seeping into my hair and clothes. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened my bag, and took out a paper, folded in quarters, the purchase receipt. The scrawled Margaret Ellison in the signature box was still clear. I ran my finger over the name and heard Henry's voice in my ear. "Always sign your name, Margaret. People can forget everything else, but a signature never lies." I smiled faintly. Outside, the city buzzed, but in that tiny room, I felt a strange peace. They thought I'd lost, but really, the game had only just begun. After Henry was laid to rest, the house was so quiet. I could hear the clock ticking all night. I missed him, his tall, slender frame, the way he grumbled when I added extra salt to the stew, and that raspy laugh every early morning. Widowhood at 56 taught me to speak less and keep small rituals to feel like he was still around. Pouring 2 cups of coffee each morning, straightening the armchair by the fireplace, sometimes whispering, "I'm okay, Henry." Then one February night, in a downpour, Clara showed up. She stood on the porch, soaked, gripping a suitcase. Behind her was Nora, makeup smeared, eyes red. "Mom, we lost the apartment. My company folded. The landlord wants rent now. We can't swing it." I opened the door without further questions and nodded. "Come in. This house always has room for you." Nora thanked me, voice trembling. She was young, beautiful, and knew how to draw sympathy. That day, I believed I was doing the right thing. I couldn't have imagined that Clara's just a few months would stretch into 9 years. 9 years of being the help in the very house with my name on the deed. At first, things seemed fine. I gave them the big downstairs room, the one Henry loved for its east-facing windows. "Morning sun is good for the baby," I said. Clara squeezed my hand and smiled. "Thanks, Mom. I'll pay you back soon." But soon never came. After Lila was born, then Eli 2 years later, Nora didn't return to work. Clara bounced between jobs, some months bringing home nothing. I covered every utility bill, groceries, and the homeowner's insurance with my teacher's pension, and what little savings of Henry's remained. I didn't regret it. I believed family love balances itself, that when they got stable, they'd lift me up in return. I remembered Henry's words before he dawns, "If you can, don't let our kid know hunger, Margaret." So, I did everything to keep the house warm. Mornings, I woke at 5 a.m., made breakfast for everyone, packed Clara's lunch, and took Leela to preschool. Afternoons, I did laundry, cooked dinner, and rocked Eli to sleep. Everything ran like a clock I wound with my own hands.
Then one day, Nora said, "Mom, I need a quiet place to work. My old company's letting me do consulting from home. Maybe you could move up to the attic. I'll turn your room into a home office." I hesitated. The attic was a storage space, low ceiling and sweltering in summer. But she said it in that syrupy tone. "It's more private up there. You can rest without the kids making noise." I forced a smile. "If it's convenient for you, do it." I didn't know that decision pushed me to the top floor of my own house and pushed me out of the role of mother in my family. From then on, I officially became Miss Margaret upstairs. Nora reorganized the kitchen and labeled everything. Top shelf for the kids, bottom shelf for Clara's snacks. That cabinet is where you can keep your tea. I didn't object, but I felt like a boarder. That winter, she started hosting adults-only dinners. I still cooked and set the table. But when dinner began, Nora would smile and say, "Mom, I saved you a plate in the kitchen. We need to discuss work." I stepped out, closed the kitchen door, and ate alone under the yellow light. From the living room came laughter, clinking glasses, and Nora talking like the lady of the house. I kept telling myself, it's fine. They're young. They have their own lives. I just need to stay quiet. But silence, when long enough, becomes shackles. When Lila started talking, Nora taught her to call me Miss Margaret instead of Grandma. "Grandma sounds odd in the mouth, Mom," she said. "Miss Margaret is younger and more polite." I laughed it off, but that night I cried in the bathroom. The next day I still made my granddaughter's milk as if nothing had happened. In the third year, Clara switched to part-time engineering. I asked about her pay. She avoided my eyes, enough to get by. "Mom, I knew it wasn't true, but didn't press." When your child looks down out of shame, a mother often chooses to pretend not to see. I kept paying for electricity, water, health insurance, and sometimes slipped in extra for Lila's tuition. I told myself I could shoulder it as long as they stayed afloat. By the fourth year, Nora began setting rules. "Mom, no sweets for the kids at night. Mom, the house needs to be spotless. Guests are coming. Mom, towels should be folded this way, not the old way." Each thing sounded small, but together they nicked like 1,000 paper cuts. I listened, I did. I swallowed it. Once I made Henry's favorite stew. The smell filled the kitchen. Clara breathed in deeply. "Man, it's been a while." Nora frowned. "Red meat is full of cholesterol." "Clara, you don't want to die young like your dad, do you?" The table fell silent. I looked down at my plate and murmured, "Your dad ate this up to 85 and was still healthy." She smirked. "Different times, Mom." After that dinner, I understood. In this house, I was no longer allowed to cook from memory. I asked for silver wrapping paper with sunflowers printed on it, tied with a white bow. When the paper caught the sunlight, I smiled, picturing my granddaughter's shining face. I hid the bike in the garage and threw an old cloth over it. I couldn't sleep all night, replaying the moment Lila would see it. Henry would have smiled if he were still here. He used to say, "Sometimes the smallest gift becomes the biggest memory." I wanted to give her a memory like that. On the morning of her birthday, I got up earlier than usual. I made heart-shaped pancakes topped with strawberries and whipped cream. The kitchen smelled wonderful. I hung a few balloons by the window and set a vase of white roses in the center of the table. The house rarely felt that cheerful. I put on the old blue dress Henry once complimented and felt a few years younger. Lila ran down the stairs, blonde pigtails bouncing, clapping, and singing. "It's my birthday, Grandma." "You remembered." I opened my arms and hugged her. "Of course, sweetheart. I have a surprise for you." I hadn't finished the sentence when Nora walked in wrinkled pajamas, hair pinned high. She looked around, frowning at the balloons and strawberries. "Mom, what is all this?" "We didn't need to make a big deal. It's just breakfast for Lila." "It didn't cost much," I answered gently. She opened the fridge, poured a glass of orange juice, then turned back, voice syrupy. "You know, Clara and I already agreed this year we want to teach her about saving. No expensive gifts. We want her to understand the value of money." I looked at Lila and saw her smile dim. I tried to stay calm. "Don't worry, I only got a small present. Nothing extravagant." Nora raised an eyebrow. "Small, huh?" I smiled. "You'll see tonight." She stayed quiet, but her eyes were wary. I knew Nora didn't like me doing anything that might make her look less in front of the kids. With her, everything I did had an angle. That afternoon, when Clara brought the kids home from school, I took out the garage key. "Lila, come here with Grandma," I called. She ran over, eyes lighting up as I pulled back the cloth to reveal the shimmering turquoise bike. "Oh my gosh, it's beautiful." Lila gasped, almost breathless. "Is it really mine, Grandma?" I nodded. "Happy birthday, my little angel." She threw her arms around me, laughing and crying at the same time. My heart melted with happiness, but the moment lasted only seconds. Nora's voice cut in behind us, cold as steel. "What is this?" She came closer, eyes raking over the bike, then stared straight at me. "I told you, Mom, no expensive gifts." I stayed calm. "It's just a bike, Nora." "She's dreamed about it all year." "That's not the point. The point is, you're breaking our parenting rules." "Rules?" I repeated with a small smile. "I don't recall love having rules." She stepped in, voice low and sharp as a blade. "You did this just to show the kids you're better than me, didn't you?" Nora, don't be ridiculous, Clara chimed in. But her voice was weak. I looked at her. I did it because I love my granddaughter. That's all? Lila gripped my hand, frightened by her parents arguing. Mom, please, I'll clean the bike myself. I won't ask for any more presents, she sobbed. But Nora just sighed, then crouched to Lila's eye level. Sweetie, we just want you to learn to appreciate things. This bike isn't right. Grandma will return it. And then you'll understand why grown-ups have to save. No. Lila burst into tears. I held her, feeling her little heart thudding against my chest. That's enough, Nora, I said, my voice tight. If you want to teach a lesson, use your own money, not her joy. She only pressed her lips together and pulled out her phone. Mom, return the bike or I will. I'm not joking. That afternoon, I walked the bike back to the store, each step heavy as stone. The wind rustled through the trees, making the white bow flutter and whisper like Lila's laughter that morning. I took one last look before stepping inside and drew a deep breath. I'd like to return this bike, I told the curly-haired clerk. Are you sure, ma'am? It's our last one. Yes, the little girl changed her mind. When I signed the refund slip, my hand shook so much the ink smeared. I folded the receipt and tucked it into my wallet. As I left, a light rain started. Cold drops hit my cheeks, mixing with the salty taste at the corner of my mouth. That night, the house was quiet. No cake, no candles, just the TV murmuring in the living room. I set out the small cake I'd already bought, a simple vanilla butter cake on the kitchen table, and placed the card I'd written. Happy birthday, Lila. Love you always. Grandma. Then I lit a tiny candle and watched it burn down, the flicker reflecting on Henry's photo on the wall. Do you see this? I whispered. Our granddaughter isn't allowed to receive a bicycle because of a lesson on saving. I don't have enough say in my own house anymore. I stood, put on my coat, and stepped outside. The April night was colder than I expected. The corner store cast a dim yellow glow, the one where I usually bought milk. I had no plan, just knew I needed air. The shop was nearly empty. The owner, a familiar Italian gentleman, smiled. Cold night, Miss Margaret. Still want coffee? I shook my head. Then my eyes stopped at the lottery counter next to the register. A small sign read, Jackpot tomorrow night, $85 million. I gave a tired, wry smile. One ticket, please. With these numbers, I slowly read the familiar sequence. 10, 14, 21, 25, 30, 41, 47. Birthdays for Henry, me, Clara, and the two kids. The numbers I'd played for 25 years. An old habit that never meant much. I pulled out a pen and signed the back. Margaret Ellison. Henry's old rule. Always sign and keep the receipt, Margaret. People can argue plenty, but they can't fake a signature. I smiled at the owner, slid the ticket and receipt into my coat pocket. I could use a little luck tonight, he replied. Hope you get what you're wishing for. On the way home, I looked at the lit windows in the scares and wondered how many people inside were as tired as I was still, trying to believe in good, even when hurt by their own family. I wasn't hoping for wealth. I was asking for one simple thing, a way out. When I got home, I placed the ticket and receipt on the kitchen table, right where anyone could see, as if laying down a quiet prayer to the universe. Then I went up to the attic and listened to the rain tapping on the roof. The next morning, as the first light slipped through the window, I heard Nora shriek downstairs, her voice high with excitement. Clara, wake up now. We won. Rushed footsteps, then a burst of laughter, quick kisses, a chair scraping. $1 million. Oh my God, we won 85 million. I sat up, heart pounding. I didn't need to look to know which ticket they were holding. I stepped onto the stairs and looked down at a scene, both familiar and strange. Nora clinging to Clara, tears of joy. The ticket held high, the ticket I had bought. I can't believe it. Who'd have thought just picked it up off the table and our lives changed? Nora yelled, buzzing with excitement. Maybe someone forgot it, but it's ours now. Clara laughed, hugging her tight. I stood still on the staircase. What started with a returned bicycle was turning into a storm I'd never imagined. I said nothing. I just watched the two people I'd supported for 9 years, dancing around my kitchen as if fate had handed them a reward. I closed my eyes and told myself, stay quiet, Margaret. Let them think they've won. I wanted to see how far their greed would take them and whether on that road they'd have enough conscience to realize the ticket was never theirs. 3 days after they won, the phone in my rented room rang off the hook at 7 a.m. I didn't pick up in time before. It rang again, urgent, as if someone were racing the clock. This is Grant Holloway, counsel for the Georgia State Lottery. A calm baritone said, I need to verify a few. Details about the lottery ticket, registered to Margaret Ellison. Is now a good time? I paused, heart quickening. Yes, I'm the one who bought that ticket. Papers rustled on his end. We've matched the signature, serial number, and our system records. The ticket was registered under the name Margaret Ellison, former Savannah address. Correct? Correct? Then congratulations. You're the grand prize winner. 85 million. I was quiet for a few seconds. Not because I was surprised, but because a strange feeling rose in me. Not exactly joy, not shock. More like when a storm you saw from miles away finally arrives. Mr. Holloway continued, his tone turning serious. But I need you to be aware third parties have contacted the commission claiming to be the real owner of the ticket, a woman named Nora Carter Ellison. I closed my eyes and smiled. I'm guessing she didn't forget the hyphenated last name. Not at all, he said, a bit surprised at my composure. She claims the ticket was bought with marital funds and that you, pardon my bluntness, are no longer competent to manage assets. I let out a small laugh. Steady, they haven't changed. When they can't take something, they try to convince others I'm not smart enough to keep it. I heard typing on his end. Could you confirm a few items so we can protect your legal rights? The back signature, your ID number, and proof of purchase time. I opened my wallet and pulled out the receipt I'd sealed between two laminates. I have the receipt. Benny's Corner Mart. Purchase time, 7:43 p.m. Friday, April 12th. The serial number matches the ticket. I also have copies of my ID and the store camera will show it. I spoke clearly without a hint of hesitation. On the other end, Holloway's voice dropped, impressed. Excellent. That's sufficient to affirm you as the lawful owner. However, I should warn you, these folks seem ready to cause trouble. They may push rumors that you're confused or even forge medical records. I sighed but didn't waver. Don't worry, I'm used to their labeling games. In my life, I've had many tags. Weak, stubborn, old-fashioned. One more won't matter. A beat of silence. Then he said slowly, You're the calmest person I've ever told they've won $85 million. I gave a small smile because to me, the real prize isn't the money, it's the truth. Before ending the call, he reminded me, the claim window is 10 days from today. If you need it, we can arrange security or independent financial advisors. I thanked him, then said, I'll make arrangements, but give me a few days. I want to see how far their performance goes. After the call, I sat still for a long time. Morning light slipped through the small window and washed over the peeling gray wall. I felt caught between two worlds. On one side, the shabby room that smelled like fryer oil. On the other, the people who just declared themselves millionaires with my money. I pulled out my old notebook and wrote a few lines. Day one after the win. I'm still poor but richer than they are in one way. I still have my self-respect. I closed the notebook and dialed Penelope Banks, my neighbor of 30 years. Penelope is the kind of woman everyone respects. Serious, fair, and allergic to show-offs. Margaret, good Lord. Where are you? The whole neighborhood's talking about your lottery win. I knocked a few times and only saw your son-in-law's wife. She said you went on vacation. I laughed. Yeah, I'm on vacation somewhere with no air conditioning, no people, and a smell of grease in my hair. What on earth? Pen, I need a favor. I kept it short. Watch the house for a few days. Note dates, plates, what cars show up. I want to see how fast they burn through cash. Penelope was quiet a few seconds, then asked softly, What are you going to do, Margaret? I'm not going to do anything I said lightly. I just want the truth to surface at the right time, in the right place. In the afternoon, I stopped by First Southern Bank and opened a small safe deposit box. The young teller asked, What will you be storing, ma'am? My future, I said, placing inside the original receipt a photocopy of the ticket and copies of my ID. I kept scans and a few photos on my phone. I've learned that sometimes justice needs to be kept in more than one drawer. As I left the bank, I caught my reflection in the glass. An older woman with silver hair, a gray cardigan, and an oddly steady gaze. Henry used to tell me, You're gentle, but when pushed, you turn into ice. Today, I understood he was right. I walked back and stopped at a sidewalk cafe. It was small with just a few people reading the paper. I ordered a hot black coffee, pulled out my notebook, and began to write. Saturday, 10 a.m. They still think I'm weak. They don't know the ticket has already spoken for me. I'm not running. I'm preparing. Every lie is a trap, and all I have to do is wait for the snap. That evening when the city lights came on, I got the first text from Clara. Mom, we want to talk. Nora is stressed. Don't believe what the papers are saying. The papers. I opened my phone and sure enough, a local site had posted, Savannah couple wins jackpot. Elderly mother gifts ticket to her daughter, then disappears. I laughed out loud. Even their lies were clumsy, I murmured. Congratulations, Nora. You just publicly admitted I bought the ticket. I texted Clara back. Don't worry, I'm not missing. I'm just seeing clearly who's genuine and who isn't. Then I turned off my phone and lay back on the bed. Rain ticked against the window. I didn't know where they were. Maybe touring mansions, maybe ordering a new car, maybe planning a new millionaire party. But I knew one thing. The rules had changed. From the moment the signature Margaret Ellison appeared on the back of the ticket, they could lie, they could threaten, but they couldn't erase the truth. I put my hand on the notebook and wrote one last line before turning out the light. Tomorrow when they buy more cars, more dresses, more lies, I'll just smile. Because this game isn't about money, it's about character. I used to think greed only shows when people are desperate. Turns out it grows even bigger when they get something they never deserved. Just 3 days after the win, Nora started performing like a star. She made a new social media account called The Lucky Ellison. On flashy live streams, she wore an ivory silk dress, held a glass of wine, and smiled sweet as sugar. Life can be very fair, she told thousands of viewers. If you do the right thing, the universe will send a reward. I watched that video on my old phone in the rented room, half amused and half heartsick, because in that line about the universe rewarding people who do the right thing, Nora was implying I was the opposite, an old senile freeloader living off her kids. On her live stream, she said, "My mother-in-law once promised to gift the ticket to the family, and we didn't want to accept it, but she insisted." Every line was crafted to sound grateful while planting doubt. I read the comments below. So lucky to have such a generous mother-in-law. She must really love her son-in-law's wife, and one that stung my eyes. Hope the old lady doesn't try to take back what she gave. They didn't know. They hadn't seen Nora's real face, but they would. That morning, Penelope called. "Margaret, you won't believe it. The whole neighborhood is buzzing about your house. Furniture trucks, flower deliveries, even a brand new SUV parked right out front. The dealer sticker's still on." I chuckled. I believe it, Pen. I even know the color black with a silver sheen. Sporty model, right? She burst out laughing. Exactly, you're psychic. No need to guess, Pen. With Nora, the bigger the better, as long as someone is watching. At noon, Penelope sent photos. Nora posing at the front door, holding a bouquet of white roses next to a sign that read, "The Ellison Residence." Clara forced a smile beside her, while the two kids were dressed in matching white outfits, more like ad models than children. White roses. Henry used to say, "Nothing is emptier than a white rose. Beautiful, but no scent." I've never heard a truer line. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Nora. Her voice was candy sweet. Nothing like the tone of someone who'd thrown me out of my own house. "Miss Margaret, I just want a gentle chat. We're family, right?" I stayed silent. About the ticket, she went on. "There's probably a small mix-up. I just need you to sign a brief confirmation that it isn't yours. It's only to help the bank process things faster." I gave a small laugh. "Nora, when did you read the name on the back of the ticket?" Margaret's question may sound gentle, but it's stronger than any revenge. If you've ever been misunderstood or looked down on like she was, would you stay silent or speak up like that? Share how you feel below. Sometimes one honest comment is enough to give strength to someone going through the same thing. Dead silence on the other end. The pause stretched so long I could hear her breathing quicken. Then she changed the subject. "People online are saying you're not in a stable situation. I'm just worried someone might take advantage of you." I cut in. "Thanks for the concern. But the only person who's ever taken advantage of me is the one on this call." I hung up, and when I looked out the window, rain began to fall. Each drop tapping the foggy glass like a signal that a storm was coming. The next night, an email came from the attorney. "Miss Margaret, we just received a letter from the law office of Carter Ellison Family Holdings. It alleges you lack the financial and mental capacity to manage assets and requests that financial guardianship be transferred to your daughter, Clara Ellison." I wasn't surprised. I knew Nora would play this card, tacking with the senile mother image she'd seated in public. Still, I asked, "What do you think, Holloway?" He gave a short, dry laugh. "I think it's a bad play. They don't understand the law. Your signature, the original receipt, the purchase data, They're all solid. If they push this, they'll cause trouble for themselves. Then let them keep going, I said. The farther they walk, the more footprints they leave. The next day, Penelope called again, voice lowered to a near whisper. Margaret, I've heard them arguing all afternoon. Clara yelled, Stop it! This is my mother. And Nora screamed, No way! If you don't take my side, you lose everything. I closed my eyes. Clara's image flashed in my mind, the little girl who once pedaled her bike. Around the yard, who promised, I'll protect you forever. Mom. Now she was stuck between her mother and a wife draining her soul. I didn't blame her. I was just sad. Sometimes love can make people blind. I lit a small candle and placed it by Henry's photo on the table. The light washed over his gentle, steady face, just like before. Do you see this, Henry? I whispered. I did what you asked. I'm not bowing my head anymore. I'll stand tall, even if I'm standing alone. I sat a long time watching the flame tremble. Every time a draft slipped through the door frame, the flame wavered, but didn't go out. In it, I saw myself maybe shaky, but still shining. I opened my notebook and wrote a new page. Already spent it, Mom. Deposits. On 2 cars down payment on a mansion on Tybee Island. Signed a furniture contract. Even paid for a Europe trip, all from a pending funds account. They said the money would arrive soon. I sat on the old plastic chair and listened, each word cutting like a blade. So you spent money you didn't have? Clara was silent. I thought she'd make excuses, but she didn't. Just a sigh and a faint rustle like she was raking her hand through her hair. I closed my eyes. Clara, for 9 years, who paid the electric bill, the water, the insurance, the kids' schooling? No answer. I repeated slower. Who, Clara? After a heavy few seconds, she said softly, You did. Right, I said. Me. The person you said was living off you. The one thrown out of her own house. The one labeled not competent. And now you're calling to ask if the ticket is mine. Clara's voice shook. I didn't know Nora would do that. She said she thought you wouldn't take it back. I gave a small, bitter laugh. She doesn't understand me, Clara. I can forgive being poor. I can't forgive deception. I paused, then said slowly, You want to talk? Fine. Come to where I am. Today, 2:00 p.m. Clara was quiet. I heard an engine start on her end. Mom, I'll come. Good, I said. But bring the truth. No gifts, no excuses. Just the truth. After the call, I looked around my little room. Not fancy, not tidy, but the only place still mine. The peeling wooden table, the old beige curtain, the slightly crooked plastic chair, where I wrote every night.